Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for joining today. I wanted to make a JMRI video, but in order to make that video, I wanted to kind of set the stage for what I wanted to discuss. So I want to talk briefly about two very efficient but very different ways to build yards in JMRI. And these are not yards in the sense of yard tracks, but rather classification interchange tracks, which is what you would use in a classification yard. The yard track is more for like a storage yard. You just want cars to just sit there. But if you want to transfer cars from one train to another, like you would in a yard, that's actually a classification interchange track. And I have talked about that in a past video, but I wanted to show you specifically how I have built two different yards that function in very different capacities. Now, don't get too much in a tiffy about the lack of scenery. I've just got the mock-up going here. I've got all the track in place. You know, just kind of some ground color, but I haven't really done any of the finer details. All right, we're going to get there. So this is Muskegon. I think that's how you say it. I haven't actually looked. I apologize if you're from West Central Michigan. But this is on the lakefront, Lake Michigan. And this is the terminus of one branch line of the Grand Rapids in Indiana, which was a Pennsylvania subsidiary. So what I've got here is I've got some staging down at the bottom that goes to a ferry. As in it's just a track, but it represents the ferry, no big deal. And that works its way up in the background there behind the scenes. And then this is an interchange with the Pier Marquette. So what I've got is I've got a yard here in Muskegon, and we've got some local industries in the back that we serve there and there. And these are all switched out of this yard. There's also a road switcher that comes into Muskegon, and that brings cars for the yard to go to the local industries. It also brings cars to go on these tracks to be interchanged with the PM. And then it holds cars that it needs to actually take back with it to switch this industry because of the way the switch is facing. It switches it, you know, when it's going back. This is Railroad South, and even though this is in the next town over. And so it heads on over here. This is Railroad South to Ravenna. Got a couple of fictional industries here, and then it heads on over all the way around. I still have quite a bit of work to do on this area, but this is just north of Grand Rapids, just an industry spur. This is the quote-unquote main line of the Grand Rapids in Indiana that continues north to Cadillac and eventually Mackinac City. But that's the staging right here. I don't model anything north of Grand Rapids. We've also got a track for a CN train there. So a little trackage right situation, that's fun. But here they come into Grand Rapids. And I've thrown some industries in Grand Rapids, but I wanted to talk about how I'm going to make this yard here function very differently from this yard over here. So here are the two ways to do it. In JMRI, let's look at Muskegon Yard, because that's the one that's done currently. So if I open this one up, you've got, for classification interchange, you've got the Muskegon interchange. Those are specifically for cars going to the Pier Marquette. But this is the yard space. So I added up the total length of track in all four of the yard tracks, and this is what I get. And so whenever a car gets routed to an industry that's served by this yard, and therefore it needs to hang out in this yard, it's, you know, routed to the yard, no big deal. But it doesn't tell you which of the tracks you need to put it on. So you as the yard master can pick any of these tracks to put it on, and you can organize it however you like. And the thing that's nice about this is this doesn't let you fill the yard beyond its max capacity, which is great. It also allows you a bit more flexibility. What if you get a whole lot more cars coming for these local industries or coming for the interchange, and you don't have space to put it over here yet, for example, or you don't have space to run the local? Well, if you have some yard space left over, then you can use other tracks to temporarily store those cars, and therefore it allows you a lot more flexibility. Because on the other yard, which is the Grand Rapids yard, this is more like a division point classification yard. So here, each track is going to be its own entry in JMRI. So if I go look at that one real quick, Grand Rapids yard. Right now we only have one track, that's the westbound track. I really actually need to change that to like Muskegon track or something, because that's the track that just holds cars going to Muskegon. And this is the length of that one track. So that's the track that the cars are on here. Kind of loops around. So 1,450 feet for that train, for that track, sorry. The max train length is 1,350, so, you know, that's a little bit more capacity than what I could ship on a single train, which is perfect. So this yard, whenever a train comes and works this yard, the switch list is going to tell you to put cars on all these different tracks. There's a southbound track, a northbound track, a westbound track. There's a north local track. There's a south local track, which is over here. Haven't made that part yet. All that stuff. So it's going to ship it to different tracks for you, which is nice. And it's going to tell you where they go. And that's because this yard gets a lot more traffic, but it also has enough capacity for everything that would ever need to come in. So this is, you know, yard option number 2, where every track gets its own entry as a classification track in JMRI. And I've done this plenty of times. There's no problem with it. It works smooth as butter, especially if you have one crew working one end that like breaks trains down and another crew working the other end that builds outbound trains. It works really well. So I've got a few arrival departure tracks here. There's 2 right there, plus you can use the siding as an arrival departure track, and that gives you essentially 3 tracks to store trains that need to be broken and to build trains that need to, you know, leave the yard. And then you can store and classify cars in these other tracks. So that's a track by track situation. The challenges here is if you don't have enough capacity, you know, like this track on the inside, this is the track for North Grand Rapids, which is really just a paper mill, honestly. But if you don't get enough tracks in there, then or enough space in your tracks, and what happens is you'll fill it up, and then you won't get any more cars routed to this industry until you, or any of the industries, until you run a train that builds out of that one track. And so it doesn't let you get the prototypical swing of car flows. You know, sometimes you get way more car flows than what you really have space for. But the trade-off about this that's nice, though, is it's consistent, it's organized, and it's reliable. It also allows you to keep yourself from getting too much, like overcapacity, which could be a bad thing, you know, to be fair. And, you know, really great railroad, Steve Davis's KCS third sub, he uses this concept in his main yard in Heavener. Every track only ever serves one purpose. The track is a little bit longer than the train that will ever leave it, so you always are leaving a few cars behind, which is nice for the next session. And then, yeah, it never changes assignments because that's how they do it, and it's organized, it's consistent. You know, people can really get proficient at working that style. This is much better for when you have someone who likes to have a little bit more say in where cars go, but it's also a really good model for when you don't actually have enough capacity. In a bit of fairness, there is just barely enough capacity in this yard to hold for the industries and to hold for the cars going to the Pier Marquette. And there's just barely, I mean, maybe a car length or 2 short of enough space to hold all the cars that would be going back, you know, because they're being brought along. Because, you know, any car that you pick up over here, it's a road switcher. It picks up cars here. Any cars it brings with it. And then any cars you pick up here in Ravenna are going to come with you. And they're going to have to hold over in this yard overnight or, you know, till the next trick, till you build the southbound train. And there just isn't really enough space for all of that at the same time. And so what that does is that by using one track to represent the whole yard, all 4 of these tracks, that just gives me a lot more of the flexibility I need in order to be able to accommodate all of these different movements. You know, the road switcher coming in, storing cars, the interchange train coming in and then taking cars out, the cars that are going to go to the local industries, you know, and that's the really nice thing about having a little more flexibility. So what I want to encourage you guys to do who are exploring JMRI and unsure about how to do your yards, think about those trade-offs. Do you want each track to be its set length and only ever serve one train or only ever build one train out of that track? Or would you rather have something that's a little more flexible, like what I've got here in Muskegon, where the whole yard is represented by one track and then you can put the cars wherever you want? It's your call. They both come with their trade-offs. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'd love to tell you all sometime from my experience. I've done both many times, and I've really enjoyed it. I will tell you, if you're going to build a yard to switch cars from one train to another, don't use yard tracks. You just don't get any control. So in the meantime, here's a pretty RS1 with a train phone. Love it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it was fun. We'll catch you all next time.